identification. Didn't quite work in this situation.
It didn't work in my situation.
No, it didn't. And here, have a Snickers. You turn into a hungry ghost when you're hungry. And I will have some trivia questions later on, and if you get it or you get close enough, come up and get a candy bar. Alright,
or he might just chuck candy bars at you.
That too. And so in Asia, especially Japan and Korea, the spirit world and the physical world are viewed as being very close. So ghosts can interact, and a lot of times you'll interact with a ghost without knowing that they're a ghost. An origin of a lot of them are in kaidens, or ghost horror stories and folktales. And a lot of these, the kaidens involve karma and ghostly vengeance, which also goes back to the dead wet girls. Because usually it is women who are the ones needing revenge.
Because somebody dumped me in a
Though
well.
I did come across one movie that does have a dead wet boy. He was an exception. And in all fairness, he was a very girly boy. And a lot of the traditional kaiden stories were made into kabuki plays, which is where you started getting the visualization of the ghost in white with long stringy hair and pale face.
But you can't really tell, but I'm pale.
Much paler than normal. So you're getting the physical appearance. First being the hair.
Come and stay. We're talking about dead wet girls. Take a seat.
Yes.
Dead wet girls.
Yes.
Get your butt down. Get your butt down and listen to this.
You like it. I'm talking about wet dead girls. This pain will get really long really quick.
It's J-horror movie.
Fuck.
Yes. Sit down.
Yes.
Alright, so the hair is, long, dark, hanging in the face. This is probably the most definitive or recognized aspect of ghost J-horror movies is that long hair. And the reason that the hair is loose is that women in a lot of Asian societies are very, confined to rigid roles and rigid things, and a lot of that is demonstrated by very tightly coiffed and controlled hair. Your locks aren't allowed to run free in the breeze. So loose hair is a sign of being released from restrictions upon them.
It means
It's
I'm
also
gonna
a
fuck your
sign-
shit up.
Yeah, it's also a sign of a loose, it can be a sign of a loose woman, i.e. you're a whore. And here I have a clip coming up, hopefully, sort of demonstrating this. This is from a movie called Phone, which is a Korean movie. And this is what you do for fun on a Saturday night.
I was going to say, she has more issues than Miranda Lambert.
Note, also always go with the zip up.
Yes. Also, do not bury your dead wet girls in a wall. They will kill you.
They will also grow their hair to become the wiring of a house, which is what
She did.
But yeah, that girl basically, her hair grew into the wiring it became the wiring of the house. So, we're going to physical thing, white clothing, which is the second most recognizable aspect of a ghost. And, you put this together with the black hair and immediately people will think of a ghost. And white is traditionally a sign of mourning and death in Asia, especially in Japan. people are wrapped in a ceremonial white kimono before burial or cremation. And we have another clip demonstrating how iconic this is. This is from a movie called Ghost, also called Dead Friends.
So it turns out to be her sister, but it's that ingrained in their psyche, that image of the dead white girl.
Sister.
That they think it's a dead white girl instead of, oh, it's her
sister.
sister.
Is have long hair and a white gown. So here we go. Physical appearance. And strength. I have 2 clips for this. So basically, simply becoming more powerful after death. This is quite literal in some cases.
But not always, as we will show.
Not always. But a lot of them exhibit exceptional physical strength as a ghost. That's sort of another sign of taking back power from and vengeance on the people who harmed them.
Yeah.
Because they weren't physically strong enough to stop what happened, they could get it back in life. And these 2 clips are from Locker 1 and 2. This is from the Locker 1.
We're that strong.
Or even stronger.
Well, on the plus side, he doesn't have to pay his part of the tab. Hint, dude, she's not doing yoga.
So, I guess any questions or anything? Before we move on to going into about actual horror movies.
What was that clip for? What was that clip for?
The two clips you just saw, the first was from The Locker, also called Shibuya Kaiden 1, and the second one was from Shibuya Kaiden 2,
Okay.
which they were released together by Genion as The Locker, so you got both the movies on one DVD, which is it's pretty good. It's one of my favorites there. So here we go into J-horror itself, which focuses on a curse that is ongoing and indiscriminate. Again, revenge focused, because revenge is always fun. A lot of these are, what I like about them is they're slow moving, they're subtle, and they're psychological. It works out my rewind button and my pause button, because I will miss something and have to rewind to find out what happened. So it rewards you paying attention a lot of the times. And a lot of these movies, especially in the beginning, they were very low budget, and a lot of them went straight to video, and a lot of them were actually shot on videotapes themselves. So that's how incredibly low budget these were. They're generally not about gore or blood, though there can be violence. It's, more slow building. It's about sneaking up on you.
We like to F with your mind.
They do. They do. Most of them feature a female lead against a female ghost, because it takes a woman to beat a woman. Right. And there's always one last twist at the end. This is like something that's become almost a trope in J-horrors, is there's always that last twist at the end of the movie, like Sadako coming out of the well at the end of Ring, which I hope everyone's here has at least seen Ring. I don't want to spoil anything. Abuse is a common theme, and there's a lot of different types of abuse that get covered. So now we're going to get into some of the different series, starting with The Ring, which is the best known J-horror franchise. So trivia question 1. How many different versions, remakes, etc. do you think there have been made of The Ring? Just take a guess. Anybody?
More than 5.
Huh?
More than 5.
More than 5, yes.
You were close.
Huh?
Are we talking like digital?
Covering movies, books, manga, everything. Everything related to Ring. How many do you think there's been made over the years? 20?
That's a really good guess.
You're actually pretty close.
I think she needs to get some chocolate lava.
Yeah, come up, get a candy bar. There.
Yeah.
24.
Or we can learn
remakes, sequels, and prequels. You get your pick. I have Snickers and Hershey's.
We like
All right.
bribery in our panels.
I'm trying to keep it fun. This is my first time running this panel. So, there have been 10 movies, 6 manga, 6 novels, 2 video games, 2 TV series, and a Sadako in the Well. And the original novel Ring, was by Koji Suzuki, was published in 1991. There are 2 direct sequels to it, which form a trilogy that goes Ring, Spiral, then Loop.
We're noticing a theme here.
He likes circular things. There are 2 other novels, Birthday, which is a collection of short stories, one of which they based Ring Zero off of, and then put out a recent book called S. Just S, nothing else. And the first movie was Ring Kanseiban in 1995. Yes?
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The video games, were they based on the Ring itself, or were they kind of shoot-off type things?
I think they were kind of shoot-offs. I really haven't gotten to research a lot of the video games, because it's so hard to find them. It's not something that really came out in English. So I kind of have to go off of it. I've seen most of the movies. I've seen half of Ring Kanseiban, and it's just weird. If we're going to be honest, we'll get into part of why it's weird and later in the panel when we go over some different parts of it. And here we continue The Ring. And Ringu, the first one, was made in 1998, was directed by Hideo Nakata. And since I skipped my other question, we'll throw this one in. Does anyone know what Hideo Nakata directed before doing The Ring. What kind of movies he did? I'll take wild guesses. You might end up close. Huh?
Pink films.
What?
Pink films?
Pink films?
Yeah.
If by pink films you mean romance porn, you are correct.
Really?
You're gonna get all the chocolate.
Wow.
He
Yeah.
directed romance
We're gonna make you
porn.
super fat.
He directed romance porn before doing. He did a movie before The Ring called Jewelry, Ghost Actress, it was also called Don't Look Up, and then he did Ringu. There was a sequel, Rosin, which was based on the novel Spiral, that was released the same year as Ringu, and Ringu 2 was released in 1999. So it's about a year difference between the sequels, and Ring Zero was released in 2000, which was based on a short story Suzuki did called Lemon Heart. And it basically goes into Sadako before she became an evil ghost coming out of a well issue. Which
A girl's gotta have her hobbies.
yeah. I mean, I really like Ring Zero much more than Ring 2, Ringu 2. So, Ringu 2 and The Ring 2 both were just horrible. There's something wrong with the movie when I'm sitting there for after the movie waiting for Sadako to come start killing people because I hate them all. And they're
It
not, they're that
happens.
unsympathetic.
That-
And there has a new movie, Sadako 3D, was released in 2002. And evidently there's going to be a Sadako 3D 2 that they're working on. So, fun times. And there's been 2 remakes made here. And unfortunately, neither of them really touch on, I think, one of the best things from the Ring book, which is what the videotape actually is. And that is that the videotape is a virus. It is Sadako's baby because in the book, basically before she died, she was raped by the last guy who had smallpox. I told you, rape's a big thing in a lot of these. And basically she wanted to have the baby, but she couldn't. So her and smallpox fused in unholy alliance to create a baby. And
Into
that's
the
what
worst
the videotape
STD ever.
into a videotape, which is basically a virus. And they point that out at the end, that everyone who watches it becomes a carrier. And then you have to basically give it to someone else. And that. So none of the movies really touch on this, except the Korean movie, which tells you right in the title. Trying to take some history out. And then you have the Korean virus was released in Korea in 1999, and The Ring was released here in 2002. So, who remembers their first time seeing the American Ring?
I didn't like the
Scary.
American Ring because the horse dies.
Yeah.
I like the original one better.
So my story about seeing The Ring too is I saw it with a friend, and I had to drive her home. And she sent me home a different way than I normally got to her house. So she took me over Merrimack Bottom Road.
Which it's a scary back road.
It's a back road. There's lots of woods. There's sparse things around. We had a full moon, and I was just like, I hate you for driving us here after seeing that. And then we spent the night in fear of her TV until we got so bored. We're like, she can't come out of a DVD, and we watched Sorcerer Hunter.
Best thing ever. After my friend and I watched The Ring, this was a few weeks later, we decided we were gonna watch The Green Mile. This was on VHS. We fell asleep, and it was on 2 different VHSs. The first one ended, we were asleep. When we woke up, there was just white static, like you see in The Ring, and we're like, oh God. Then we're like, oh wait, no, the VHS just ended, we're not gonna die.
Alright, so the next one we're gonna cover is The Grudge, which is probably the second most well-known franchise. There have been 7 Japanese movies, 3 American movies, and 1 video game.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And 1 Kayako coming down the stairs. So the series was created by Takashi Shimizu, who's directed or produced pretty much all of the Japanese movies and the first American movie.
Ooh, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Alright, you'll get a candy bar if you can correctly answer this.
Uh-huh.
Do you know why there is a black cat in this movie?
Do you know why
Yeah.
Toshio hangs out with the black cat? Why Shimizu put that in?
Is it like his medium or something? Or like that?
Okay,
It's like
medium.
familiar?
What's your
Close.
pet? Huh?
Pet?
His pet? So is that why Shimizu put it in? That it was his pet? That the cat was? You're close enough to get a candy bar. Does anyone else have an answer? Alright. Basically Shimizu put it in because he likes black cats. reason Toshio has a cat. Shimizu likes black cats, and she wanted to put them in a movie. And you know what? I forgot the book.
I'm not running back again.
No. So the whole franchise started with 2 shorts on a TV show called Gaku no Kaiden, or I think it was actually called Gaku no Kaiden-chi. Basically, I always imagined they're like, we're gonna give you, 2 little 4-minute shorts right before commercial break, do something amazing with them. And he did. So, another question. How many actresses have played Kayako in Japanese movies?
We have lots of candy, so we'll take any answer.
Take a guess. I really am.
We want a lot of candy bars at you.
Yeah. 3. Anyone else want to guess?
7.
Hmm?
7.
Nope.
2.
Closer.
Mm-hmm.
3.
The same actress has played Kayako in all Japanese movies. The same lady. So, here, you can get a candy bar.
Yeah.
She already got one. And I don't put it.
Yeah, we don't
I keep
need-
making all the same people laugh. I will just share the calories. Alright, so since they're both really short, I actually have the 2 shorts that started The Grudge. They're called 44444 and Katatsumi in a Corner. So, let's get here.
I always want to check my phone.
Yeah, I'll try to change it so you can hear it a little better.
You can see the fabulous VHS quality on the wall. Also, moral of the story, don't just answer random phones.
And you can also tell how old this is by the cell phone he picked
Yeah.
up. This was like mid-90s here, or late 90s, I suppose.
When floppy disks could rule the world.
And when Nokia ruled the world.
Just hang up and play Snake. Hang up and play Snake. I almost think men deserve what they get in here because they do stupid things like this. That's how my cat greets me in the morning.
I get more of it. And clapping.
Okay. Having this fabulous conversation with the kitty. That's where I left my friend. I like how she started freaking out and then just kind of resigned herself to her fate.
Yeah, and there you have the first appearances of Kayako and Toshio. And from this spawned the whole series. And what's very interesting is that the first Grudge movie that was like made for TV movie, they actually came back and visited these characters and they got worked into the actual story, which is really interesting there. So I guess before we go much further, does anyone have any questions about The Ring or The Grudge? Okay. So then the only other real franchise I could think of was One Missed Call. I wasn't going to forget Mimiko. So there's 3 Japanese movies, 1 TV series, and 1 American remake. So, which famous horror director directed One Missed Call? Nah. Takashi Miike directed the first movie in 2003. Yes, the same man who gave you Audition did a Dead Wet Girl movie. And the movies very much deal with subjects of child abuse and bullying, because the ghost is, she's not very much a victim of abuse herself, as in she's someone who hurts other people to get attention, but the main character is a victim who's basically, that you follow through the first movie, is a victim of abuse, and bullying factors in some of the later movies there. And also Mimiko is very punctual, because the one time she doesn't make it on the time set on your phone, she rewinds the fucking clock to go back to that time.
She likes being punctual.
She is punctual. So here are some other Japanese movies that I really like. So we have Dark Water, which is also based on a short done by Koji Suzuki, which if you've seen the American version, the plot is rather similar. I prefer the Japanese version over the American version, but we'll get to that a little later when we get into remakes. But basically this woman is getting divorced. She moves into an apartment with her daughter, and then the water spot from hell shows up on her living room ceiling.
Always get your water spots fixed.
The Locker, aka Shibuya Kaiden 1 and 2. And basically the premise of this is that there is a coin-operated locker in Shibuya that has these basically 2 urban legends about them. One is that if you put, like a love token for your special sweetie in the locker and close the door and come back, then it will, basically give you good luck and your feelings will be returned. The other one is also that something horrible happened in that locker and, you'll die if you use it. Now, which one do you think is true? Yeah, it's not the first one.
It's a trap.
It is a trap. Basically, they're it's also a movie about why birth control is a good idea. There's a woman basically tried to self-abortion and then put her baby in a locker. Something that actually happened in Japan a lot in the 1970s. And so that follows that here. Kaiden, wait, back up. There we go. Kaiden, which is directed by Hideo Nakata. It's a remake of it's the story of Kaiden is a folk tale. There's also a movie made in the 1960s that focused on it. But basically, the woman there, the guy who said she's holding, I forgot to say, I think it's Iemon. And basically, she is the ex-girlfriend from hell that follows him around, mostly because he's sick. And there's also a whole big family feud there. It's really good. It's much more traditional in that it's, ancient, medieval Japan with people walking around in kimonos and whatnot. But it really is scary in its own. Prey is basically this group of delinquents kidnaps this little girl for ransom. They're holding her in this old school. And a lot of spooky things start happening, and then they find out that the girl kidnapped is actually been dead for 2 years.
Good luck getting the ransom.
Yeah. And Seance, which was directed by Toshi Kurosawa, who you should look at some of his other movies because they're really good. They just don't fall into the ghost girl category. But Seance is about basically this psychic woman who her husband, sort of finds this girl that was kidnapped, and then the girl dies and they're starting to get haunted by her. So, there are more. These are just some of the ones I like the best and I thought were the best. So, movie from Japan. You We're now into Korea. So, Korean movies have a slightly different focus. They focus a lot on school-aged ghosts and take place in schools. It's a commentary on the school system. Because if you thought your high school was hell, you didn't go to high school in Korea. They have something called midnight study time, where basically you stay in that school until midnight, do nothing but study. You go home, you study more, you go to bed, you get up, and you go back to school. It's
Lather, rinse, repeat.
It's a grinding thing. That's why a lot of them form as commentaries. There's a lot more focus on getting revenge directly on those responsible, as opposed to Japanese movies where they're just getting revenge on humanity. Because I think someone described it once, basically in a Japanese movie, loneliness kills the entire world. In a Korean movie, loneliness kills a couple of people. So that's one of the big differences.
The little Japanese dead girls, they're gonna
They
freaking
hate
kill
everybody.
everybody.
A Korean dead girl really hates the people who hurt her, and if you can, get rid of those people, she'll be kind of cool after that. And rape and female sexuality is a very common thing, because one of the big Korean sort of ghost types is what's called the virgin ghost. Because Korea never burned their bras, Korean women never burned their bras. So a Korean woman is taught that you serve your father, you serve your husband, you serve your son. If you die a virgin, you do not fulfill your purpose in life, which is to make sons.
Yeah, but you don't want to have, too many, because, yeah, they don't like that either. They're picky.
And picky is there. And a lot of Korean movies are actually unwilling to show the ghost itself. You'll hear about the ghost will affect things. Sometimes you won't realize that there's a ghost, but they won't actually show it. You don't have a lot of Sadako's coming out of the well. In fact, the Click-Proof Phone, which is a Korean movie, it's kind of rare where you actually have the ghost appearing out of something to enact vengeance. And Whispering Corridors. This is basically the only real Korean franchise. There are 5 movies so far, and it's kind of like Final Fantasy. And none of the sequels actually link to each other than taking place in schools. Universally, all Whispering Corridors take place in schools, and almost always, it seems, all girls' schools.
That's where we get the short skirts.
Yeah, so none of them really have short skirts. But the movies are in order from top to right. You have Whispering Corridors, Memento Mori, Wishing Stairs, Voice, and the most recent one is Blood Pledge. And I've seen all of them, but Blood Pledge came out a couple years ago. There's an emphasis on bullying and the school system and the stress of the school system. And when I say an emphasis on bullying, Wishing Stairs takes place as like performance school, where they do, orchestra and ballet and that. And some girl puts, I forget, it was either glass or tacks in someone's toe shoes. Glass. There's someone who's seen it. Glass in someone's toe shoe, and she goes out and somehow goes through the whole performance, and you're just like, ow. Yeah. It's like coming out, and this was her friend who put the glass in her toe shoes, and you're just kind of like, ow.
Don't sign me up for that school.
Also, Whispering Corridors has a lot of lesbian themes. It's really obvious in Memento
I
Mori.
like that. You're like, yeah.
It's really obvious in Memento Mori, kind of less so in the other ones. But yeah, Memento Mori is a big one. As I said, Korea doesn't have a whole lot of, doesn't have any real horror movies that are sequels to each other. So you sort of have just Whispering Corridors.
Getting the
But
headache.
we get into other Korean movies. A Tale of Two Sisters. This is one of my absolute favorite movies ever. Because it's very well shot, it's very psychological, and it's one of those movies, you'll watch it all the way to the end, get to the ending, and you'll be like, oh my fucking god, and you'll have to go back and watch it all over again.
When I saw this movie, I'm like, that's what's gonna happen. Then they made me think, no, it's something different, and then you're like, whoa.
Yeah. So basically the premise of the movie is these two sisters are living in a mental institution, and they're going to live with their father and their new stepmother. And weird things start happening around the house, and it's based on a Korean folk tale, which I did at one point actually find the folk tale, but I forgot what it is called there. Then we come to Aram, which is another good one. It kind of
So many kinds
follows,
of that stuff.
yeah, it sort of follows some of the same things as The Ring in that you can go to this website and see this weird clip of a salt storehouse thing. But basically this girl was, she was raped and they videotaped it. For some reason, they're big on videotaping it. And basically she then ends up being killed, but she goes after the people who get her. And the phone, which you saw the clip of earlier, which basically there's this cursed phone number. And when you get that phone number, you start getting calls from it and you basically end up dying. And the main character ends up with this phone number and basically, since she's a reporter, she has to find out what's going on there.
She can't just be like,
Yeah,
nope.
just be like, "Oh." Alright, and this is Ghost, which is also called Dead Friend. So depending on how you're trying to find it, you'll either be under the Ghost or Dead Friend. And this one, basically, the premise is these 5 friends went on a camping trip out in the woods. One of them drowned, and one came back with amnesia. So she doesn't remember what happened to the girl that drowned. And then slowly the rest of the friends start getting picked off. And
Just
this
another
one,
Saturday night.
yeah, is Muoi, the Legend of the Portrait. And this one's interesting because it's a Korean movie that 90% of it takes place in Vietnam.
Which I don't think I've seen.
I don't think you did. I think I watched it by myself. But basically, this girl goes to visit her friend who moved to Vietnam, and her friend has this cursed portrait hanging in her house, where if it's completed, then like the ghost is going to come out of it, and it ties into why the friend went to Vietnam in the first place. Our Point,
Love it.
which is an awesome movie in a lot of ways. Again, it's a Korean movie that actually takes place during the Vietnam War, because Korea actually had the second most number of troops in Vietnam outside of America during the Vietnam War. And basically this regiment of soldiers ends up at this, I want to say it's a hospital or something, and creepy stuff starts happening and they start seeing this woman around the place.
What's really funny about that movie is most of it is in its original language, but then they meet some American troops and all of a sudden they're like, they know how to speak English, they're talking English, and you're like,
They're just kind of like, what? Whoa! And there's this big black guy that shows up, and you're just kind of like, wow, this is really
it's a bit different from other movies, but it's very good.
It is very good, and it still falls into the ghost girl
Yeah.
bit there. Alright, so here we get
You
to...
still fuck your shit up.
So here we get to Dead Wet Girls Around Asia, where we leave Japan and Korea and try to go elsewhere. Starting with The Eye, which was done by the Peng brothers in Hong Kong. So the first eye, this girl gets in basically cataract transplant so she can see and starts seeing ghosts. The point is if you're blind, I think the friends say you should just stay blind.
Most
And
horrible
then-
side effect ever.
Yeah, The Eye 2, which is completely unrelated to The Eye 1, follows this woman who basically tries to commit suicide, but doesn't realize she's pregnant at the time, and not only do you do that, that can enable you to start seeing ghosts. And it has some really disturbing stuff, including her jumping off a building 4 times while 9 months pregnant, and living, and getting back up, and doing it again. That's how determined she is to escape these. And you have Shutter, which is a Thai film, with the lovely guy there. If you really like how he looks, you should go see Legend of the Tsunami Warrior, because he's in it.
I have yet to see
in a
the Thai
loincloth.
film. I've only seen the American film, which I thought was kind of meh.
The American film was kind of formulaic. The Shutter, the Thai film has some very interesting points, but no, you can't see the woman here. Basically, his girlfriend starts taking photography classes, and she starts seeing this ghost, this person in all of her pictures and that. And so she goes to find out what's going on and why it is seems to be connected to her boyfriend. And then she finds out some dirty little secrets that her boyfriend probably wishes she didn't find out.
That's what happens, when you take up photography classes. You're like, is this a double exposure all the time? No, it's a ghost.
Yeah, see, it's moving. And here we have The Heirloom, which is also a Hong Kong movie, because the I and the I too are from Hong Kong. And there is a third Eye movie, which we're going to touch on later. Oh yeah. And so we have The Heirloom, which again is a Hong Kong movie. And basically it's kind of about this family that got decimated, except for like one child, basically one son, and he comes back later with his girlfriend to try and move back into the family house. But the family had a very disturbing, I guess, way that they made their money, thing that they did. They made these little good luck jar things they're supposed to bring wealth, but they contained dead baby fetuses. And if there was something wrong with you in the family, you became a fetus maker. Yeah, basically you get to that, and so this is the fun part. The remakes are really bad, and the what the fuck. Because there are some what the fucks.
Because you know Asia.
There have been numerous remakes of J-horror. The Ring, the most successful. The Grudge. I liked the first Grudge movie. I really did. Because it sort of worked its way in, but it also was a really good translation of the Grudge theatrical movie. American Shutter. Dark Water.
Which I did
And
like.
if you look at the American Dark Water without the Japanese version, it's not bad. But if you've seen the Japanese version, you realize that the American Dark Water is missing something. Because in American Dark Water, they basically got a Spanish director to do an American remake of a Japanese movie. And tell me you don't think something's going to get lost in translation here.
Well, on the plus side, okay, it has Jennifer Connelly in it, who
It does. Who did a very good
Who did an
performance.
awesome job. She was also in, what was it with David Bowie that had the codpiece? So at least you don't have him in there. Because that would just be so much more creepy.
Yeah. But no, part of what it lost from the Japanese Dark Water is that in the American Dark Water, there's never a doubt that there's a ghost, but in the Japanese version, there are points where you're like, okay, is the main character just going crazy? Is her ex-husband just fucking with her? Or is this actually the ghost messing with her? You never have that kind of uncertainty as to what's actually going on that you do there. And then there's one I went too fast. one Miss Call remake.